Welcome to a muzzled chat. Listeners, this is an episode I have been looking for the last few days now. And we are finally blessed with the presence of Chaplain James tonight. He has an incredible story for you. It's an extremely heart-wrenching, challenging to hear, but we must all hear it and acknowledge what has taken place in this nation. I am in shock we knew on the civilian level with this pandemic how tough things got for certain individuals. And I knew it got tough for our military men and women and heroes of this country, but I had no idea. I had no idea as to how challenging it got. And for Chaplain James, I know I can't even describe. So I just want to welcome him here today to tell his story, to bring some light, and hopefully, once and for all, touch the hearts of many to champion what we need to do to support our service members, support this narrative, because the reality of our nation and our future, we cannot sweep this under the rug. There is no normacy and lives to go back to until we address this horrific issue. And we got to take it head on. And I know it seems dark. I know it seems challenging, but I know through unity, we can achieve this. So even before hearing the story, I challenge you to pay this forward like we never have any episode ever before. With that being said, Chaplain James, thank you for your time. Thank you for honoring this platform with your presence here this evening. How are you?
Good evening, James. I'm doing well. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be unmuzzled, to share with you my story and to help others. Thank you.
It is our honor. So you could share with the listeners one of the reasons as to why we haven't kicked this off over a couple days ago is simply due to the challenges you are faced with. And seems as though you're still in a fight for your life.
It is a fight every day, James. It really is. It's a fight every day.
Well, I don't know where you would like to start. I mean, Chaplain James, let's start with that just for a second, because some of the listeners may not be aware as to chaplain. And if you want to explain that in your own words, as to how you gain that, what would you call it? Title? Yeah.
Ministry. Yeah. Title ministry. Absolutely.
Okay.
It is an honor. To be an Army chaplain, the roots of the Army chaplaincy go back over 200 years, actually. Okay. General George Washington, as we all know, our first president, when he had the Continental Army way back in 1775, he wanted ordained ministers to be there for his soldiers, his troops. And so he's actually the founding father of the chaplain corps. He actually started it with his soldiers. And over 200 years, those of us who serve as ordained ministers are called chaplains in the military, whether it be Army, Navy, Air Force. We are called chaplains. I served over 15 years as an Army chaplain. Wow. And yes, and the basic mission, sir, is that we nurture the living, take care of the wounded, and honor the fallen. And the nurturing part is, I think, such an important part. And even though I'm not officially in the uniform anymore, I still want to start and complete the work that George Washington did all those years ago. I want to nurture the living through my story and how COVID has affected me, the VAX.
Wow. Sounds like a very selfless journey. Whatever we could do to share. So you just said over 15 years?
Yes, sir. Over 15 years altogether.
That's decent amount of service right there.
Yeah, I started off
Um,
as a chaplain, actually a chaplain candidate. And the Army had a program back in the day for those of us who were still in seminary to come into the program, try it out, so to speak,
yeah.
work under a full-fledged chaplain and see, is this a ministry for you? And as I completed my Master of Divinity at Liberty University, I was working with a chaplain at different Army Reserve units. And, I said, this is where the Lord wants me. I have peace about it. I was never called to be a pastor of a church, but I wanted to serve as a chaplain because I enjoyed working with people from all across the world, all across the country. And it was a calling, a ministry.
Wow. Why the Army?
The Army. My grandfather had been in World War II and D-Day.
Oh
And I
my
remember
goodness.
growing up with stories of how, and he was a very humble man. He didn't talk all the time about it, of course, but when he did talk, I would try to listen. And that's why I miss him so much. He was a good role model for me. And he just would take me to military bases because he retired. And I just loved the environment of being on bases, of working with soldiers, meeting different people from all across the world. And the
Wow.
Army, at the time, the Army was just the perfect fit for me. I started off in the reserves. So I was able to keep my job. At the time, I was working as a hospital chaplain on the civilian side. So the Army was a good fit. I was able to do both, keep a civilian ministry and be an Army chaplain too in the reserves.
Wow. Well, let's get to know you a bit here.
Mhm.
So you end up married, you have a
Yes.
child.
Yes.
Let's just get to know you a little bit here.
We're a blended family. I wish I had met my wonderful wife, Faye, 20 years ago. It
Oh,
would have saved
cool.
us both from a lot. We both went through bad divorces
Oh,
in
wow.
our younger years. But she was the woman I was praying for so many years, and I met her
Wow.
8 years ago, and I have one son from a previous marriage. His name is London, and Faye has 4 children from a previous from her.
Wow.
So we're a blended family, and of course that has a lot of issues that come with it, hardships and challenges. But one thing that has kept Faye and I strong is that we both have this ministry, this calling, James, to
Yeah.
to serve the Lord
Wow.
however we can, and to use the hardships we've gone through to help others.
Wow. So if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I don't know where you want to dive into regarding,
Sure.
your service, but I've heard some things and that you were deployed,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if that was pre-pandemic, during the pandemic. If you just want to really dive in, divulge whatever you feel prompt and you're able, we would love to really capture everything you went through.
Absolutely, James. Before my last deployment in 2020, 2021, when the pandemic hit, I had served as an Army Reserve chaplain in different units, transportation, civil affairs, infantry. My last unit was the 140th Chaplain Detachment,
Mm.
which is located part of the 81st RSC of Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And we were called for deployment, myself and my 56 Mike, my chaplain assistant. And we were called for deployment several months in advance before I left in February of 2021. The pandemic was hitting. At the time, I received my orders, all the shutdowns. We eventually started our deployment by mobilization. For your
Mm.
listeners, they know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to go to mobilization to get cleared and everything. I was assigned to Fort Hood, Texas in February of 2021. And at that time, James, there was a lot of social distancing. People were being very careful, what have you.
Mm.
I passed all my physicals. I was cleared by all the physicians at Fort Hood, Texas. And then in March of 2021, we started our deployment. I was assigned to Iraq, Syria, parts of Afghanistan, but I began my deployment in Kuwait.
Oh,
And for
wow.
those who have been in Kuwait, they know exactly what I'm talking about. It was a jumping off point, so to speak, for everyone. What was so interesting, James, is when we were at Fort Hood, Texas, mobilization, they had social distancing. We had to get tested for COVID over and over again. But once we arrived in Kuwait, it was like everybody was put together. There was no social distancing. I was with soldiers from all over the world, wonderful people. I enjoyed meeting them. I really did. but there was no social distancing. We would have about 140 people, men in a building. We were all sharing the same restroom, and this
Wow.
is went during the COVID. So we went from social distancing to no social distancing. Everybody thrown together.
Well, didn't you know the virus knows when you're safer? Oh, I just crack. It's just
Yeah.
insanity.
No, you're
Sorry,
right.
continue on.
No,
Continue
that's
on.
exactly that's exactly right.
It's like the restaurant, you know, it knows like you are in danger in that line. You must stay 6 foot safe. And then it knows you best wear that mask till you're safely seated and start stuffing your pie hole. Only then you're safe to take the mask off. But
Exactly, brother.
yeah, it's just insanity. Obviously,
It
all
was.
this for those that I'd venture to say the majority of our listeners are in the know. And for anyone that's obviously doing their due diligence, I mean, Fauci was just caught. Like he made
Yeah,
up the whole 6 foot safe. Like
absolutely.
it's a joke. And then what's
It
coming
is.
out on the masks and everything is just downright horrific.
It
So
was.
anyway, I don't mean
Absolutely.
to
No.
distract there. So you're surrounded by all your comrades there sharing a
Mm-hmm.
single latrine.
Single latrine, about 140 of us. And where I was there for a month, we were doing all our classes, getting ready to go to Iraq.
Mm.
And about 3 or 4 weeks after arriving in Kuwait with all my brothers, and sisters over there in Kuwait, a lot of us got COVID. And I'm just saying, not just me, my chaplain assistant, the other chaplain I worked with at the time in Kuwait, and a lot of other people from around the world, we all got sick. And when I say sick, I actually had horrible pneumonia. I was on a respirator for a little bit. I was very sick. I didn't think I was going to make it just with that natural COVID that I received. They put a lot of us in isolation, of course. They call it the ISOFAC, where you're by yourself in isolation.
They didn't give you any like remdesivir or anything, did they?
I do not believe so. I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. No, sir.
Okay.
And we were just very, very, they would basically just give us water, and just really not really do much for us. Of course, I was on a respirator for a little bit, but after about 4 or 5 weeks, I started feeling better. They needed chaplains. They were in a shortage of chaplains. So once I got to the point, well, I'm still walking. I feel like crap, but I'm still in want to continue this deployment. So they moved me on to Iraq. I was in Erbil, Iraq. Now, when I arrived in Erbil, Iraq in April of 2021, I had 45 days since contracting that original COVID in Kuwait. So I was still recovering. I was not completely, ready to go. But I was doing the best I could under the circumstances. And a lot of us were, a lot of us were doing the best we could. When I arrived in Erbil, Iraq, the CG, commanding general, told all of us, and I say all of us, about 120 people in this very small base in Erbil, Iraq, that we had to get the vaccine. And at the time, it was the J&J VAX. We were immediately told, say hindsight's 2020. I was immediately told at the time, the J&J VAX is FDA approved. Don't worry about it. It's a very safe vaccine to take.
Wow.
I didn't want to take it. A lot of us didn't want to take it. My chaplain assistant didn't want to take it. A lot of us were like, no. A lot of us had COVID. We were still less than 90 days out. And interesting enough, James, they had this rule saying you're not supposed to be vaccinated with any COVID vax if you're less than 90 days out from having the natural COVID. So we're supposed to wait at least 90 days before they even give us anything, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't care. When I say they don't care, I'm talking about the leadership at the Erbil. They didn't care. They had a quota they had to reach. They wanted 100%, and that's what they were going to do. Sorry, that was my doggy. They wanted to do 100% accountability. So some of us, I was a holdout for a while. I did not want to take it. I went to my command. I said, I don't want this. I don't still feel well from natural COVID. This is not a good idea. And that's where it got really bad.
Right.
The commanders, the people over me, even especially my head chaplain, said, hey, Chaplain Link, if you do not get this, this is not going to be good for your career. You're going to get a bad OER. And for those in the military, their officers, OER is the officer evaluation report. You're going to get a bad OER. You may not be leaving here anytime soon. You might be in confinement somewhere. And they didn't just suggest this. They actually told me this.
Right.
And at the time I was being gaslighted, but at the time I didn't know that because, here I am in my uniform. I want to be a chaplain. I want to continue my tour, do good work for God. I didn't realize at the time that I was being treated this way. But as time went on, and I'm talking about maybe a 2-week period of this constant, if you do not do this, you are going to get in trouble. They got even more fierce. The head chaplain said, hey, you're going to be kicked out of the Army if you don't get this.
Just ramping things up. Yeah,
right.
Court-martial, everything.
Court-martial, right. And that's when they start talking about court-martials. 15-6 investigations, you're going to get a GOMAR chaplain link. They actually said that you're going to get a GOMAR if you do not take this vaccine, which is a general officer memorandum. So it's all this punitive punishment. And I say we, a lot of us in the base, we're going to receive.
I can't believe the psychological pressures. It's literally psychological warfare on our own service members. I mean, especially for someone that's deployed. And you had access to information, but not like a regular civilian. You had all these duties.
Exactly. I did. I was so busy with my battle rhythm. And when I say battle rhythm, I had, I was visiting soldiers, all throughout the base. I was always trying to be busy doing my job. And I didn't think about, are they setting me up here? I mean, no, I mean, I just thought, hey, they must be telling me the truth. They said it's FDA cleared, it's safe. And the more they kept threatening me, eventually, unfortunately, I succumbed. And I use the word succumb because I gave into it. I got the vaccine because we were scared. I mean, we started to get scared. Hey, we're going to be kicked out. And for me, being in Erbil, Iraq, I didn't want to be staying there, forever. They threatened me with confinement in jail if I didn't take it.
That's insane.
And not just once, James. This happened over a period of weeks, several weeks.
Wow. And building. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. So you can correct me, but didn't someone threaten you to be stuck there and not even return to the States?
Yes, absolutely. My senior chaplain told me, if you do not get this vaccine, because again, they wanted 100% accountability to turn into the Biden administration. They wanted that 100% accountability. So they said, if you do not take this, you are going to stay over here. And who knows when you will come home. You're going to be stuck here.
That is criminal.
Yeah, it is.
That is nothing shy of criminal. Because once again, there was no shot that ever went in an arm that, in fact, met that whole FDA approval. In fact, they approved the COVID vaccine just so they could put an FDA approval in the headlines, but no actual jab carried that. If it was something entirely different.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. It was. And the lies they repeated to us over and over again, this is FDA approved. And we found out, of course, later, a year or so later, that the J&J vax was not FDA approved. By the time they lied to us, I received the vaccine. It was end of April 2021. About 3 or 4 hours after receiving it, I started having sweats. I was throwing up. I felt horrible. It's like,
You know what, Chaplain James, there's something that's weighing on me. And then we'll get right back to after you received it. But you said, I mean, to me, to this day, I put in air quotes over here, like, define COVID. What's COVID? Yeah, undoubtedly, there was something strange about how the illness that pandemic era had. I lost my smell and taste to an extent, but it was nothing horrific for me. And I found personally with a lot of people that were like, oh yeah, I almost died. And I'm sitting here like, really? Like they're like, it's the worst that I ever had been. And I was on, and I was like, really though? Like, really? Like, think back when you were now the thing is, your situation was a little different because you actually ended up in a position of care, which it's no secret now the hospitals in a huge way became the kill camps, the modern
Right.
day ovens, if you will, because the actual protocols is what now factually proven is what was killing people. People weren't dying from COVID. So
Right.
that's where I challenged people like, really, was it really? Think back to your childhood where you were spewing out of both ends to literally, like, I think there were times, even as kids and teenagers and all throughout life, we actually didn't even know how freaking close we were to the other side.
Absolutely.
So I just think with all the fear porn and the hype and the media and the talking heads and the government and the mandates and, the shutting down, just all these things, I think it just amped up. People were hypersensitive to the very situation. Now with you, the point you're getting a vent, that raises some flags to me because, I mean, we know remdesivir failed epically its Ebola trials. 54% of the patients to that Ebola trial died.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to force, and guess who was behind that? Fauci.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
had to pull all of that. So it's insane to me that becomes the gold standard to now treating freaking COVID.
Yeah.
What is that? They still kind of can't isolate it into the wild to this day. It's just we know the testing itself is defective.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't need to go
You're
down
exactly.
those rabbit holes, but I'm just like, it makes me wonder because you tell me if I'm wrong. But as hard as it was, as bad as the COVID got for you and other
Mm-hmm.
people were getting sick, did anyone die? Were there a bunch of people dying?
Not at the time. No. When it was before the vaccine. No, there was none.
No,
Absolutely. No.
there was no threat. There was literally no threat. Now, you did mention it got bad. However, you got put on potential protocols that enhanced. It sounded like only water. They weren't really attending to you. And it's
No.
no secret that a lot of individuals end up malnourished. So if you're on a
Right.
vent like malnourished, it magnifies things. Now I'm not a doctor, but I've read a lot of the reports and statistics that a lot of these individuals that walked into the hospitals on their own accord were totally fine and that, but isolated from family and friends. I'm
Yeah.
grateful to hear that or obviously see that you even made it out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah. And
anyway, I don't know.
you're right, James. It was isolation. It was everything that came with it. It had just been the COVID, like you said. I would have been
Right.
just fine. I would have gotten better. But like you said, you're exactly right, James. It was all the layers they put on top of everyone. The
Yeah.
isolation, the threats. Exactly.
Well, were they giving you ivermectin or
No,
hydroxychloroquine or vitamin D
no,
or zinc or
uh,
the healthy things?
no. I wish
Like,
when I was
were
still
they
in
taking you
Kuwait.
out of your bed and letting you get some sunlight and ground and just all the
No,
healthy things?
no. I feel like a prisoner. We were in tents.
Yes.
No natural sunlight, hardly at all. Tylenol.
Isolated.
Yeah,
And to me,
isolated.
it's no secret. It's no secret as to why it took 5 weeks, why it was tough, and it actually got that bad for you. The actual protocols enhanced the negative impact this bug, whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
you were dealing with had.
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't mean to get too distracted there. I know
No.
folks are anxious to hear more. I'm anxious, and the story's very captivating. So you end up getting coerced, manipulated
Yep.
into getting this thing. I mean, I can't even imagine being in your shoes. I can't say whether I'd cave or not, but more than likely, I just can't imagine. I want folks to think on that for a sec. Being overseas, being threatened coercion martial, which could lead to a felony. You could
Yep.
lose your right to bear arms.
Yep.
The impact it would have on your wife, your children.
Yeah.
You're being 15 years in,
Right.
your insurance that your family's depending on, and the benefits, and just everything. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
don't put just you're building into a future.
Yeah.
15 years, I mean, you're 5 years away from the retirement.
Yeah. So close. Exactly.
Less than 5 years because
Yeah.
yeah, you were 15 and change. So
And they knew that. The chaplains that I worked with, they knew that. They knew my record. They knew I'd been in for so long, and they used that against me, and they used that against us. When I say us, they knew what people's
ooh,
backgrounds were, and they used their service against them, James.
you're 15 years in, Chaplain James. Come
Yeah.
on. What are you thinking? Get
Right.
the jab. This could all be over with. Like, no pressure. What's the big deal? You got all these other ones. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You're the issue. This is psychological warfare, man.
Yep.
I
Absolutely.
cannot believe. I mean, you could see the military and how the chain of command works,
Mm-hmm.
but to me, on every individual level, everyone swore a freaking oath.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to hear the ones in leadership didn't stand and
Yep.
fulfill being a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And I I'm not the one to judge, but I do believe there's no immunity for crimes
Mm-hmm.
against humanity, and this level of just tyranny and criminal behavior, not hearing people out and their individual, like right here, this shirt. What happened to this?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to freedom?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
your body autonomy. And it
Yep.
wasn't an FDA approved. It was only under EA or EUA. Is that what it is? EUA?
Right. Yes, sir.
Emergency. Yeah, the
Emergency. Yeah.
EUA. And they can't force that. They
Yeah.
legally cannot enforce that. Yet they threatened and they took that stance and they pushed it and pushed it. It is it's like pinch me. I
Yeah.
cannot believe. So I must say personally, when I started hearing about on my side of the pond and over here in the civilian world, because
Mm-hmm.
I have a family in the reserves and a history of service, and I know the importance of a strong military, especially in today's day and age. Like I've even been banking on potential military stepping in to rule out corruption on bigger stages, right? And
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling
Right.
the oath on the threats, foreign and domestic. So I was praying and very hopeful. I was like, there's no way. Because as I started hearing the mandates for our service members, I was like, there's no way they're going to actually inject this I knew to be bioweapon. There's no way. It's got
Yeah.
to be a placebo. So the
Yeah.
whole time I was just hopeful and hopeful that it was the placebo, that it
Yeah.
was the saline solution.
Yep.
And obviously, at this point, we all know that was not the case. It seems like some people have gotten lucky, but so many have not. So with that, let's continue from when when they coerced you.
Yeah. And at the time, they also I received the anthrax shot too at the same time, which is
Interesting.
interesting. Later on, the Army took out some of my records showing that I had the anthrax, but I have records showing that I did have it at the same time. But I digress. I will discuss that soon. When I did receive the J&J VAX and also the anthrax at the same time, only a few hours later, I felt horrible. That's an understatement. My heart was palpitating, just out of control. I was having AFib at the time. I didn't realize it. Other people with me, my chaplain assistant and other people, they also had the same heart issues, feeling like.
No kidding.
And yes, sir. And I went to the sick hall.
Mm.
I couldn't go a lot because I had duties to perform, which I love doing my ministry as a chaplain. But I would go, they said, you'll be fine. This is normal. It's a good drug. The vaccine's normal. They tried to reassure me. And at the time, James, I was so busy being a chaplain thinking about other people. I didn't want to think about myself. So I kept going. I kept plugging away. Eventually, I started feeling so bad. And I say so bad, I had to go back to my cot in the afternoon just to take an hour rest because I was just exhausted. I felt horrible after the J&J VAX. My head chaplain found out from other chaplains and chaplain assistants, said, "Hey, Chaplain Link is resting more. It doesn't matter that he had COVID and he had the vaccine. He just doesn't feel well." So they called me in to the head part of the fob and just yelled at me for taking a nap for an hour. I tried to explain, "Hey, I don't feel well. I don't feel well. I'm doing my duties. I just don't feel good." They didn't care. And when I say they, I mean the head chaplains I worked with, and the O5s and O6s. They didn't care. They just made me feel worse. Hey, we got the vaccine. We're doing great. And I think that's wonderful. They didn't have any reaction, but I did.
Wow.
This continued for I'd say about 3 more weeks. Eventually, I just felt horrible, like I was in a collapse all the time. And I did actually pass out a few times. Eventually, I got so bad, I went back to the hospital, the little medical place they had in Erbil, Iraq. They put me on a monitor. They saw my heart dipping to the 30s, almost the 20s. And they said, "Oh my gosh, this guy's heart is erratic. We got to get him out of here." So they flew me out of Iraq to Kuwait. And when I was back at Kuwait, I went to the Hadi Hospital. It's actually a fancy hospital in Kuwait. And they did a emergency pacemaker surgery on me, which by then that ended my career because you can't serve with a pacemaker. They put me on blood thinners. So here I have a pacemaker. I'm on blood thinners. I have the Army leadership looking at me as I'm a Duffelback Joe. Didn't matter that I had served all these years. I had good OERs, passed my PT. They're looking at me as, wow, this guy couldn't handle the jab. He must be weak. They called me the weakest link. They started saying that to me, the weakest link. Here's the chaplain. He's not feeling well. He had to get a pacemaker.
Chaplain, yeah. I know, like, God even talks about how the words, and I need to face the man in the mirror when I say this. God spoke everything into existence. Like, words have such power and impact. So I just wanted to take this moment and express that, Chaplain James, you are not a weak link. You are not. And I don't know if you needed to hear that or not. Probably not. You're a strong man. But
no, I need to thank you.
Bro, they were wrong. Okay? Dead wrong. It's not always about like restitution or accountability. Like it is important. My prayer that I'd like to see answered is just warriors like you, those that are suffering, attain the proper support you guys need and beyond, where so many that wouldn't get it and stood against it got stripped of everything. I would like to see all of that reinstated. All the corrections made, more than the lynching posts for individuals that led to X amount of genocide, more than, because I know God will be perfect in his judgment. I just want to see the needless suffering get minimized as much as possible in this fallen state, this fallen world.
Absolutely.
We're all just tested. But anyway, I'm sorry. I totally distracted from your story there.
No, I'm glad you said that, James, because it is true. I'm still suffering, because the enemy, Satan, he attacks us, and even those of us as chaplains, I'm talking about myself here. There's times when we get attacked and I get very weak and I get down because, my body's not what it used to be after this vaccine. And
those type of words can have an imprint. Those evil words spoken can have an imprint. And I want to speak more light into you and show your freaking strength and real strength, lack of cowardice, being a man of faith. Like there's nothing more praiseworthy, brother.
Thank you.
And
brother.
the fact, because so many natural men could just easily turn against God and challenges such as this. And the fact it's only increased yours
Yes.
just goes to show your character, your integrity, and the relationship you've established. So continue, man.
No, thank you, thank you, brother. I appreciate the encouragement. Iron sharpens iron, and I appreciate you, brother. After I got the pacemaker, they went ahead and medevaced me back to the States. So we're looking at,
Wow.
I got COVID in March. Less than 45 days later, for your listeners, I was jabbed with the J&J and the anthrax at the same time.
Wow.
And then I lasted as long as I could. And then in August, I got the pacemaker surgery. So I lasted from April all the way to August. So I tried to hang in there as long as I could. After I got the pacemaker in August of 2021, I have a little pacemaker card. So I always remind myself, hey, that's when you got it installed. They sent me back to the States, James. I arrived at the Soldier Recovery Unit. And I'm saying it this way for emphasis because your viewers will understand why I'm saying this in a minute. I thought the Soldier Recovery Unit at Fort Bragg would be a place of healing. After it says, Soldier Recovery Unit. It was anything but a recovery, James. Anything but. There were several of us. It wasn't just myself. There was I'd say about 9 or 10 other of us who were also injured by the VAX. I was the only one that I believe that had a pacemaker, but a lot of us were injured too. So we all arrived at the Soldier Recovery Unit. I think, wow, we're going to be able to heal, get better. No. It was an interrogation from the first day I got there. So I arrived at Fort Bragg. They put me in our billets, our quarters. They didn't care if I had any food. There was not even MREs provided. They're like, well, you're on your own. There's a bus stop. So here I am with the pacemaker. I'm still not feeling well. I'm still having AFib. I'm having these heart issues. I feel horrible. My wife will try to fill in the blanks here.
Oh, he's just mentioning he also had asthma.
Right.
That was not diagnosed yet. He also was suffering from a TBI. That was not diagnosed yet.
Wow.
He was having AFib and couldn't even hardly walk to the bus stop, but they were refusing to take him anywhere. When I came full time to take care of him at Fort Bragg, he had no food. He had nothing in his refrigerator because he didn't have the energy to go to the store. Because still at that time, all the little cafeterias, all of those were closed due to COVID. So to my surprise, thinking this was a good place to be to recover, it was far from that.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Faye. Yeah. So, and the asthma came after the vaccine. So here I go my whole life. No breathing issues. After the J&J vax, I've had breathing issues.
That's what I was going to say. And the 15 years of service, even better yet, your whole life. How many times did you go into the hospital because heart?
Zero.
Zero. But now you find yourself in this recovery unit and they're investigating
why.
Couldn't be the vax, essentially, right? Couldn't be that. Like that's obviously because they want to rid themselves of any responsibility for the wrongdoing, the criminal behavior. Yeah, it's clear as day. Like what does our military become? Freaking criminal? Like what?
Right. And I thought it was hard at Iraq. When I got to Soldier Recovery Unit, that to me, I'll tell you, James, that was the hardest part because every day at formation, at 6 o'clock in the morning, we were told, those of you that say you have COVID, this is in your head. You're imagining this, you just have anxiety. And they didn't just say this once to us. The cadre told us this every day. If you're having issues, it's not because of COVID, not because of COVID vaccine, not because of the vaccine that you received. This is all in your head. This is anxiety. This is other types of things, but the vaccine's safe. So we were told this lie again and again. Yeah, and for me, James, like I heard it so much, I was like, what is wrong with me? Is it really me? I didn't believe it, but like you started hearing that every day from the cadre, you take a pause. And even though I was injured, I was still a chaplain. So I got really, and I call it righteous anger, and that's okay as Christians to have righteous anger.
Yeah.
And that's why I had, James. And I did it. It wasn't for myself. It was for these younger enlisted soldiers who were being treated more horribly than I was. And I would say them. I would tell the cadre, hey, look, leave this person alone. They're going through
Flip those tables, Chaplain James. Flip them tables.
You're exactly. Flip those tables. That's right. Amen. And that's what I tried to do, and that even made him more angry. And the more I stood up for other soldiers, James, and did my ministry as a chaplain, because I still had the cross on my uniform at that time, the leadership at the soldier recovery unit got even more vicious. They really came out, because I'm still, we're still in soldier recovery unit. We're in orders. We're on orders. We're still receiving pay. We're still going through, we're still all I'm still a chaplain, so I'm not going to stop being a chaplain just because I'm in a soldier recovery unit.
Right.
So what happened, James, is this went on for about, I'd say, a couple more months. And I was wondering, when am I going to get out of here? Am I going to be able to go back to my home station? I mean, what's going to happen? It's like, no, you're going to be staying here longer. And they wouldn't tell me why. One time I was called into the commander's office. And I was called in because I did more of the flipping of the tables. I stood up for another soldier who was being treated badly. And I also stood up for myself. I said, this is not right. You patronizing us, making fun of us. This is not right. This needs to stop. So they called me into the office at the soldier recovery unit. And the commander said, Chaplain Link, you're a troublemaker. You're always causing trouble. I said, now, how is that, sir? You're causing trouble. You're telling the cadre how to do their job. I said, no, I am standing up for these soldiers who are being made fun of just because they're, we are not subhuman, but you're treating us as that we are subhuman. I said, my ministry is stand up, and they got even more mad at me. And they said, and I defended myself, James. They said, you know what? He's just crazy. Take him to the mental ward. So they actually.
Wow.
In a white van, they had 4 other enlisted soldiers taking a chaplain to the mental health department. And I'm like, okay, I know some of these people, because actually I did. As a chaplain, I worked with some of the mental health department. And the mental health department, the lady looked at me. She's like, after she talked to me, she said, he's not crazy. He's mad about what happened to him, but he's not, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He's not suicidal. He's not a danger to himself or anyone else. What are you doing? And the SRU leadership was, they wanted me to be, taken away, in isolation mental ward. So that didn't work. So then about a month later, they do a 15-6 investigation. And it wasn't just on me, it was on other soldiers as well. But the one that was on me personally, they tried to say, Chaplain Link, you must have had pre-existing heart issues.
A legit investigation.
Yeah, legit. And
my gosh, trying to cover them tracks.
They went back and got, statements that were, I couldn't see actually who was saying it, but I know who it was. Other people I served in Iraq saying, Chaplain Link had to take a nap after he got the vaccine. He's on up to par. He must have just lied on his physical. He must have, they lied. They said I had false statements, that I really shouldn't have been cleared for deployment. Well, it's interesting because I passed all the steps. Everything was blood pressure. Everything was passed. We all passed it.
Yeah, that's nothing light.
Exactly. So then, but now they're saying after the fact, oh, you had pre-existing issues, which of course I didn't have before. Right. They tried to take any responsibility they could, James, off them, and they wanted to put it on me. They didn't want to take responsibility for us being lab rats and getting injured. I'm sorry. Right. Thank you. Yeah, and before this happened, before the 15-6, my wife just reminded me, thank you. I had already gone through the whole medical board. They were trying to med board me out. The med board looked at all my records. They said everything was fine. This was a VAX injury. I was given a med retirement date, which was for what was it, May of 2021, 2022, excuse me, May of 2022. So I was all set to retire, and right before I would start, turning in my TA50 gear, they hit me with this 15-6 investigation. Wow. So just so your listeners understand, the med board, the VA, they did what's called the CMP exams all at the same time during this process called the IDIS process. I forget what that acronym means, but you go through the med board, you go through the VA, all of them looked at me. They said, there's nothing pre-existing. His heart was injured by the COVID. So these professionals all agreed, hey, this is a COVID-related injury. But the Army, the vaccine, the leadership, the vaccine, excuse me, the vaccine injury. But the leadership was like, hey, No, this is pre-existing. So they do the 15-6 on me. I wasn't able to retire right away. I eventually had to get a GOMAR. They gave me a GOMAR saying I had pre-existing issues, which they could not prove, but they alleged it. So
Wow.
the head colonel gives me a GOMAR. My wife actually wheels me in a wheelchair because I was feeling so bad in a wheelchair while they read the GOMAR to me. So I'm in a wheelchair. They're reading the GOMAR to me, which was very humiliating. You know, they have everybody surround you
Mm.
and turn their back on you, basically. We had to get an attorney, James, to fight for my good name.
Get out.
After all
Wow.
this, yeah, so I was there for almost a year more fighting all this.
Wow.
Eventually, I did get my honorable discharge, but we had to get what was called a U.S. senatorial congressional investigation. And we were still residents of Florida at the time. So we got Marco Rubio, who was against the vaccines. And thankfully, his staff helped us. And we were able to
Wow.
get me an honorable, decent discharge. But Augusta Gormar is still in my records. They still, wrote what they wanted to about me. And what's so sad is that I did this to other soldiers too. It wasn't just me, it was so many other people. All of us there at the SRU, they treated a lot of people the same. They got the same stuff, pre-existing. And none of us had pre-existing issues, but they, like you said, they wanted to take the liability all away from the vaccine. And this has destroyed so many lives. And one
That
thing I think is,
beyond boils
yeah,
my blood. Not only should be all that be expunged and cleared.
it was hard, James. And what really makes me so sad, James, is while I was at the soldier recovery unit for about a year, there were soldiers who I served with that were vaccine injured. Well, some of them did not wake up. So these people, we found out now that the J&J vax causes blood clots for some people. So we had some soldiers that I knew
They
that actually didn't
all
wake up.
have. They all
Right.
have been linked to that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And
Every single. Yep.
I'm sorry.
Pfizer, Moderna. Yep.
Yep. Yes, sir. And several of the soldiers that died while I was at Fort Bragg, they labeled it as suicides. It was not suicides. They
Get
didn't wake up.
out.
Yes,
The
sir. They did not.
actual.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They're,
And my wife and I knew a lady personally. Her husband didn't wake up, and they ruled it as a suicide, and that he was in his right mind when he committed suicide. Which, of course, it was the vaccine that killed him. But then she didn't get any of his benefits, because they labeled it as he was in his right mind when he committed suicide. And this happened to several soldiers who I knew.
several. One is one too many.
Right.
Listeners, can you absorb that? Did you hear what this man just said? And I'm hearing it from other soldiers than you too, that there was not just soldiers that didn't wake up and got ruled as suicide, but I also heard that there were some soldiers, due to the horrific impacts of these bioweapons falsely called vaccines, that their symptoms got so bad that yes, they legitimately suicided, which even that is an unacceptable outcome to go unnoticed, right?
Absolutely.
But legitimately to absorb, I don't want to dilute the fact of soldiers legitimately dying from this bioweapon, falsely under an FDA approval, falsely being called a vaccine.
Yep.
Literally kill these soldiers, and it gets rolled up as a suicide. That is beyond, that's egregious. That is beyond acceptable. And we must do something about that. And I just want to call upon the listeners, how we can really have an impact is just sending this far and wide. I don't know what else to say. We need your support.
Yeah.
These soldiers and what took place need your support. So please comment, send us far and wide. Let's get it. I mean, I genuinely, Chaplain James, have been racking my brain harder than ever on marketing, on whatever we could do to magnify the impact we're having on this platform, mainly due to running into you warriors, you heroes.
Yeah.
And what you've been through. And I feel this platform isn't doing your story justice, to be honest. And by the listeners' help, maybe we could send it far and wide enough for Stu Peters or any of the mega, whether it's Tim Pool, Charlie Kirk, Dan Bongino, any of these mega platforms, to onboard you and your fellow comrades to get this information out. But we can't bank on just that unless the listeners have those connections. So it's just important we do our part.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable.
Thank you, James. And it's such a tragedy, James. You're exactly right. And it's just, as a chaplain, as a human being, James, and your listeners, I'm sure will agree with this. As a human being, it's just so tragic to hear this. And as a chaplain, I was an integral part of these people who didn't wake up. And I had to deal with that and bereavement. And it's just the tragedy. The government just hid this. And the vaccine, it just destroyed so many lives. And I firmly believe, and again, I've had a hard time wrapping my head around this. Why did I live when there's so many other people that have died with the J&J vax and other vaccines? Why am I here? And my wife reminded me, hey, you're here for a reason, to get the story out and to help people, recover, to help people, because there's so many hurting people out there. And those of you that are listening now, please hear me here. Someone who's hurting because of these poisonous vax, and
right.
Lives were taken away, and I'm still healing. This is a process for me too, James, and I'm healing. We're all healing, but what can I do? This is why I'm very grateful to you, James, in this platform to get my story out. And I never was interested in politics or anything, but I'm praying fervently about one day running for office, to really help people, and I just want to encourage those of you that are listening. You have a voice. James is here for you. You have a voice. We are here for you, and there is someone fighting for you. And like you said, James, we get the word out, and have something to care for other people is what I want to do.
Well, you're definitely a man I can get behind. Full support. 100%. I felt it pre-show in the prayer you gave, just this selflessness you have, this strength you have, these gifts God has bestowed upon you. And I just applaud you for staying strong in faith and continuing on that path of selflessness, and as closely as we can mortally walk in Jesus's footsteps. So many mortal men would have been broken in this position and facing the challenges you have faced. And I know you've had even those moments, and that's where God equipped you too, because you shared that with me, that your wife definitely was one of those rocks, foundational stones, if you will, that helped get you through those darkest moments, as well as our Lord and Savior.
Amen. She was my anchor, and Lord worked through her, my wife, to encourage me. And without Jesus in my life, I wouldn't have made it. And you're exactly correct, James.
Well, I would ask the listeners in this moment, I am a firm believer in prayer. Let's pray for Chaplain James and his speedily recovery and healing, that God has a purpose for him to fulfill, and that he's able to fulfill that in its entirety. I mean, already what you're doing is just amazing. And I believe you're far too humble. I mean, you literally have been in a fight for your life ever since that needle went in your arm. Didn't you, in fact, even end up with a heart attack?
Yes, thank you. That was, thank you. I actually had a stroke last October, right, Faye? October. Sorry, my mind gets kind of cloudy. In October, last October, I had a minor stroke, and I was in the hospital for about a week. And because of that stroke, I'm still recovering, memory issues, different things. And then again, that's because of the J&J vax. They found blood clots. And I'm even on, Xarelto blood thinner, but even then I'm still, having these issues, and it's hard. My wife looks at me and she's like, James, you've gone white. You're white as a ghost. I mean, your whole body just looks white. That happened today. And happened today, actually. And I actually look like, wow, my color's gone. And then it comes back. And I talked to one of my other military friends, and he's going through the same issues. And I'm 49. I'll be 50 in November. But I know people that are in their 30s or even 20s that are going through this similar issues. And it breaks my heart, James. And it's like there's so many people out there, and listeners, those of you that are listening, we know people that have suffered, and just want you to know that you're not by yourself. You're not alone. And God has this wonderful platform that my brother James has here, and we're with you. You're not alone, and we'll get through this together. And I know that sounds so basic, but we are here to fight for you. I'm here to fight for you, listeners who are listening to this now, and we'll get through this. And we want to help people with resources, things that I have learned through this fight. I would love to help anyone who needs, questions or anything to help out. I'm here for them. We're here for them.
Same here. On Muzzle Chat, we're not just playing on words, in a sense, is satire stating in a lot of our advertising, your story matters. We mean it. Everyone's story does matter. And at any point we could help magnify anyone's voice, anyone's story to benefit individuals and listeners and the overall solutions we so desperately need. I mean, we live in a very challenging time, undoubtedly, very, very challenging time, but a very blessed time, because it's just so clear, as we've said before on this platform, you can just so clearly see this spiritual warfare taking place around us and how effective it's infiltrated the digital space, the entertainment space, sports even, that are more so entertainment than even sports anymore, are political. There's literally a ruling class that is demonic, that wants to depop, wants to diminish our spiritual connections, our well-being, get us dependent, like just encapsulate us, and basically defeats God's plan for each and every one of us.
Absolutely.
And that's where the more I dive into the Bible, the beautiful roadmap God's left us, to help just speak light and truth and guidance and just all the things. It just makes this life clear. It's clear to me why we're here. And I know a lot of people are fighting that, because I fought that narrative. I fought the seeking out that relation. And I'm just telling you once again, it was to my own detriment. And you don't know what you don't know. So you might as well, in this time, what's it going to hurt,
Absolutely. It is a spiritual battle. You're exactly right, James. And, we're wrestling with demonic forces. And like you said, so eloquently, it is true. But the clarity, I'm glad you said that, James. That is so true. The clarity. And I know the viewers are listening to this too. The clarity that I have now, I have never had that type of clarity. When I say clarity about my mission on this earth, even when I was working at hospitals as a chaplain, doing bereavement, I have more clarity now, about what God wants me to do and for all of us to do. It's just the clarity is there. So like you said, we're in blessed times too, that we can shine Christ's light into this dark world. And with that clarity, we can enact change, make differences. Exactly.
It's just wild. You could see how powerful evil has even gotten with its level of influences, all the different angles of attack, and how it even influenced your fellow brothers in arms, of leadership and things, and soured their hearts and clouded their minds and got fear porn pushed into them, and even fed pride and ego and sense of entitlement to, I want to be the first commander of my platoon to everyone to follow orders for my own, selfish promotional desires. Evil really infiltrated that all heavily. And I pray everyone seeks God. And obviously, we're all sinners. So I'm not here to cast stones, but gosh, dang it. What has taken place is unacceptable. And I believe the great delusion at this point is that we could just selfishly go back to our selfish lives, I guess, without addressing what took place. Like it's a non-option.
Exactly.
When I hear your story, like we have to show up. We have to rule out this corruption, this demonic overtaking in order to secure a future for freedom, for our rights to continue our relation with God, even because you could see historically how it's led. Because if God hadn't been taken out of everything, where it's in our Bill of Rights, it's in our Constitution, it's all encompassed into the founding of our country, but it's been pulled out of everything, the military wouldn't have even been able to do what it did with God pulled out like it has, so we gotta integrate all that back. It's just one conversation like this at a time. I don't want any listener to feel as though they can't have an impact, because you can have a greater impact than
Yes.
just by sending it to that one additional person. You just don't even know the impact, and it could lead to connections that bless Chaplain James's life and so many that are suffering. I just pray that we gain that momentum to have that positive impact. And luckily, there are great breakthroughs. Dr. McCullough, I mean, I know pre-show I played a gal that was talking about a very basic bath. Maybe do I still have it pulled up? I believe somewhere right here. So Dr. Carrie, I can't pronounce her last name, but she's saying a detox from the bath. A detox from the VAX is simply bathing in a tub, soaking as long as you can, scrubbing even with baking soda, Epsom salt, borax, and bentonite clay. And I've heard from other individuals this, in fact, has gotten that spike protein out of their body, but it took multiple baths. So you just go to where your symptoms are just gone. But there's many other type of detoxifying things and more breakthroughs I know to be had. So anyone struggling out there is hope. Hang in there. Our greatest champion, God, is there to see us through every step of the way, and help give that strength and peace and clarity, everything we are needing.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of what George Washington said. The Army Chaplain Corps is to nurture the living, care for the wounded, honor the fallen. And we have all three categories of people due to this poisonous vax. And again, that's like I said before, James, that's my purpose in life. God has me alive to continue to nurture the living, care for the wounded, and honor the fallen with this vax. And I tell you, James, we are just so grateful to you for giving us this platform. The Lord is going to use you in mighty ways, brother. And I don't know how strongly to say that, but God will continue to use you. And we're just grateful for you, brother, for all you're doing for us. Thank you.
Wow. I'm speechless. The pleasure's all mine. I am honored to have you here.
Thank you, brother.
Your battle's grave. You're literally spending time doing treatments each and every day. Tell us a little about what all you're even dealing with to this day.
And I think some of the listeners can relate. They've been through the Veteran Affairs, and I've met some good people there. And don't get me wrong, but it's just you come back from deployment, you're out of the military, and they just load you up on meds. And so now, thanks to the J&J VAX, I go from no meds to several blood pressure medications from the VA. blood thinners, recovering from a stroke in October. And all of that, I'm constantly seeing doctors and dealing with physical therapy too, due to my stroke, trying to get my speech back, back to what I used to be. And, I don't think I'll ever be the way I was, but, God's going to use me the way I am now because, God, wants to use me and use all of us who have been hurt by this. And it's just a daily struggle. And again, I don't hardly even drive because as soon as I do drive, I always feel like I'm going to pass out because I'm still having those heart issues, even subsequent to my pacemaker. So I'm blessed to have my wife, it's a daily struggle.
You mentioned pain.
Yes.
Where's this pain stemming from?
After I received that VAX, I received so much pain throughout my limbs. It started in my chest area, James, and then it radiated through my legs, my arms, pain that the doctors are calling nerve pain. And I've never had nerve issues before. But it's just a constant pain. I am in pain management now. I'm going to be getting some good ketamine next week to try to help that.
I've heard good things. Okay.
Yes, sir. And the nerve issues I have, the pain, all that happened subsequent after the VAX, areas of my body I never thought would hurt that are hurting. And I'm just trying to get, my life back to how it used to be. And it's a daily struggle. It is.
Wow. I'm so sorry to hear of everything you're going through, but I don't mean to throw a butt back there, but it's the strength.
Yeah.
It can be when you're in the suck, it sucks. Clearly, it's suck for a reason. But when you break through, especially those moments, you just feel, oh man, it could go either way. I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
But it's just wild when you're on the other side looking back.
Yeah.
The character building, the resilience, the strength it gives you, the resolve. It's just, you can't teach that to anybody. And that's where you would be an amazing political figure. You're exactly what Michael here on a recent episode was talking about. We need in leadership these days. Your core values and morals, everything are upright where they need to be. It's selfless journey, and you more so would be fulfilling the servant role on behalf of your constituents. So is that too much to ask for?
No, I'm praying about that. No, I'm praying for that. The Lord will use me and all of us who have been affected by this, and I'm just praying the Lord will lead me every day. And absolutely, it's very humbling. But like you said earlier, James, I'm so glad you mentioned it, brother, because you said about the clarity, and that's the clarity I have now that I've never had before. This is my mission. God's mission. Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I applaud you for being on that. I mean, I can relate. I don't know. A lot of the times I just got to kick that doubt out of the way when, I'm not seeing that growth or having that impact, I so gravely am seeking. But I know those could very well just be the challenges set before me to refine me in the fire. But it's really cool to know, like, what a blessing it is to know you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It's like God and you hand it all over to God, and he just, he's got you.
Exactly. And it's just knowing that is what keeps me going, James. And, my spouse, I'm so blessed in so many ways. And, I want your listeners to know there are many days, almost every day, where I wake up and like, Lord, I'm hurting so much. I get down too. I mean, this is a struggle for me. I want your listeners to know this is a daily struggle, but having that clarity is what keeps me going and all of us going, absolutely.
Right. Who knows, Chaplain James, fast forward some years from now, God might bless this platform to a point where you are a runner up in some election somewhere. We'll have you on. We'll
Thank
put
you.
you through the ringer, ask you the tough questions. What are you going to do in
Absolutely.
this position? We would love to be in that position. That's
You.
just kind of a fun thought futuristically. Maybe
I welcome
our
that.
paths will cross on that. And it'd
I'd
be
be honored.
rad to do it in person even, you know?
That'd be awesome. I welcome that. That'd be great, James. Absolutely.
Well, do you have any other burning desires in this moment?
Just want your listeners to know that I don't know exactly what they're going through, because everybody has their own story, and that's what makes this America. That we serve the Lord, and we can have we come together. And I want your listeners to know their stories are so important. We all have our unique struggles, but again, that you keep saying, like you said before, James, that clarity, the clarity we get from God. This is our purpose, and I just want to thank you again for having this platform for all of us. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Wow, I'm humbled, man. I don't know what to say again. What would you suppose would be some of your calls to action to the listeners, that solutions to just
Absolutely
things that are going on? And
we need accountability. When I say that, we need a government. The founding fathers, they didn't want people serving in Washington for 50, 60 years.
right.
They didn't want career politicians. You're supposed to serve your term, then go back to your farms, go back to your family. And I want to make a promise, if the Lord wants me to do this in the future, that I will serve and then go back to my family and work and continue to serve in a humble manner. But we need accountability. We need to get rid of these mandates, get rid of the masks. We need to have a country like I grew up when I was young, who is patriotic, get back to our roots. And I just promise your listeners, however the Lord will lead me, that we just need to have accountability. We need our leaders to be an example for their constituents. Absolutely.
Well, once again, grateful to have you on, Chaplain James, and I hope that all our listeners will at least bless you with some prayers, with some healing, and just strengthen your resolve that you already have and gain that momentum to get in that position. We also desperately need more men like you to fulfill and step up to that plate. There's a lot of good men out there that just don't have the fortitude and the spine to really tackle that, because they know how corrupt it's all gotten. It's like, if you're not willing to sell your soul, good freaking luck. Yeah. And we got to change that.
We do.
Why? That's my question to the masses, essentially, is why are we the people allowing demonic individuals to rule over us? We are the people. We are the government. Amen. We're the body of it all. Can't you see what they're trying to do to this country with the invasion happening? It's essentially to dilute everything historically, America, like the patriotic backbone of this country.
Yes, absolutely.
So we must unite, and the time is now. And I just hope and pray we all seize this moment in time. With that being said, Chaplain James, I am so grateful. Thank you. And if there's something we didn't cover in this episode, happily have you back on. Okay. If there's news, good news, bad news, any news, we are at your service.
And thank you, James. Lord bless you. God bless you, sir. And for all your listeners, Lord bless you. And we're praying for you, and we will stand up for what's right. Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Well, listeners, I sure hope you enjoyed this episode with Chaplain James and his lovely wife chiming in there for a minute. We have great blessings and great challenges ahead of us. I sure hope we seize the day. You know what? I think we're just going to add potentially something else in here because this is one of the calls to action. The military.accountability.net.
Yes, I was so honored to sign that, and with all other brave patriots. And thank you for mentioning that, James, because that's so important. Yeah.
This is a call to action for all of our listeners right here to get on this page. It's military.accountability.net. Check it out for yourself and sign this petition. It's beautiful. Like, it's just a single page write up. It touched my heart when I read it. It's one of those things, like, I'll leave it up to the listeners, but I challenge you to listen or to go to this webpage, read it for yourself, sign that petition. That will help create the momentum we need on the accountability side of things to help right this ship. And this other book, Defending the Constitution Behind Enemy Lines, is one your other comrades brought up to my attention the other day. And it's just a story of hope for those who love liberty by Robert A. Greene Jr. I'll be sure to add these in the comment section below. Another thing you could do. But thank you, listeners, for joining us today. Be sure to check our affiliations below. Up your resilience. If anything seems a little daunting or challenging for you, I would like for us to take a second and potentially acknowledge, like, hey, have we been successfully, intentionally diminished to an extent our own resilience to where we feel like, what difference can we make? Or, I'm too busy. It's like that to me becomes proof that evil has diminished us. So it's important to detox from parasites, detox the body from metals and chemicals, and start treating your body like a temple. It's a gift from God. And
yes,
it's important that we, especially in this country, we vet our food, our water, and stop poisoning ourselves. And the more we take that serious, next thing you know, like, the better you're going to feel, the more energy you're going to have, the more solutions are just going to come to you. The path, that clarity, everything just clears up. It's getting that way more and more for me, even as evil is trying fight tooth and nail from more and more angles. And I just hope that breathes some light into folks. But thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, God bless. Take care.